Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back to this course on architectural thesis. My name is Dr. Vishal Chettry and I am working as an assistant professor in the Department of Architecture, Planning and Design at IIT Varanasi. So in this course so far we have covered details about floor plans, about building elevation, building sections as well as site now we will focus on the topic which is related to the site elevation. So after understanding why elevation is important, so once that or section is important for the building, so how does site elevation help you explain the other details of your project more clearly to the examiner or to the panel members that who will look or examine your work. So that will be discussed along with some key things that has to be followed when you draft your elevation. So that also will be discussed and highlighted in this presentation. So now let us proceed ahead in this presentation, which will be completely focusing on the drafting and designing site elevation. So before this is the content for the presentation, in which we will start with the recap, then an introduction to site elevation will be showcased, thereafter understanding what site elevation is required in several different contexts. So that will be understood how your site elevation should respond to topography and terrain. That is what is being the purpose for preparing site elevation. So that also will be discussed, integration with vegetation and adjoining features, illustrating skyline, material and scale. Some examples will be also discussed, key expectations and outcome of site elevation. Then there will be a conclusion of this presentation, key learnings that you can emphasize and that you can follow in your thesis project. Some activities will be suggested at the end of this lecture along with some resources and the topics that will be covered in your next presentation. So to give you a recap of what was covered in the previous presentation, we had discussed about building sections. So how does section help you explain the details about the project? So all that was discussed, and also about the importance of building section, its relation that with the vertical connectivity, that was also very well explained along with the sections as it represent the human activity and interior layout. That was explained how does this stands true. There was clearly showcased various types of sections related to architectural drawings were discussed and also highlighted section drawing conventions related to how a typical section is to be drawn. That was discussed, and what are drawing annotations and drawing protocols that has to be followed when you draft section for the structure. So that was also explained in the previous presentation. So if you want to understand more on these topics, so just revisit the previous or visit again the previous presentation and try not to make the mistakes or the common mistakes that were highlighted, and also try to follow the things that are emphasized in the previous presentation regarding drafting of drafting of elevation or the section of the structure. So to give you an importance of why site elevation is necessary, you may have this question that okay, you have already showcased the elevation of the structure. So how does site elevation, or why is this there a need for site elevation? Because site elevation helps you, there is nothing as such that you may think of that can be displayed from site elevation, but that is not true in reality, because site elevations are a 2D drawing as same as elevation, but it showcases the building's exterior in relation to its surrounding terrain. So we showcase the entire site in totality. So if you have a single structure but still single dominant structure and then some small structures in your entire site, so how is the proportion of the main building that with the other buildings in your site, and how is the open space, proportion of open space and your proportion of your build spaces can be visualized in your site. So how will it viewed in your entire site, so that aspect can be clearly understood from your site elevation along with its relation to the natural setting, because in your building elevation we generally follow the scale of your floor plan. So you know very well that within the space of your sheet just the floor plan is highlighted. So we try to showcase that same using that same scale for the building elevation. So as such its natural setting and context is not we cannot visualize that in totality. So that is where building site or drafting site elevation helps other understand that the site plan is in the same reason why we build draw site elevation from the site plan is because we just have to project the lines from your site plan according to the direction and then showcase and then draft the site elevation, because from the site elevation the other thing also is clear about the openings and about the the exposure to the sunlight, or if you want to trap the sunlight, so how is your the entire design in totality is helping you. So this all information can be gathered from the site elevation. So site elevation is a vertical drawing and shows one side of the building in detail. So so for this example you can see the building that you have designed along with the natural topography of the structure. So if you have just when you draft the elevation you might have just showcased this part of the structure, but how is it responding to the the terrain of the site that can be understood through the site elevation. So it includes the facade, opening, roof lines and finishes, as well as how the building is placed on the site. So all this information can be understood and visualized from the site elevation. Unlike plans which look at the building from above, elevations provide a front-on view of the design and the context. So nearby surroundings, if there is any hill or mountains around like in the distant past, so that also can be showcased in your site elevation, and that actually helps you justify about the overall profile of the elevation. So this is why designing or drafting site elevation is very important. Then next is importance in terms of architectural representation. So these drawings serve as vital communication tool to explain the conceptual design and tangible reality. They help stakeholders visualize the building's scale, material palette and how it interacts with its environment before the construction begins, because here we use the entire terrain. So if it is just the elevation, we will focus on this structure only, but when it is site elevation we will try to showcase its natural setting. So if there is any entrance proper entrance that you have thought of, if there are any open spaces, so how does the building the building respond to the natural features. So all that can be visualized from the site elevation. Then next is understanding site elevation in some context. So site elevation goes beyond just the facade. They are powerful narratives of how architecture engages with its surroundings. So if you have a specific design elements that is just in contradictory to the nearby design, so that can be very much clearly understood from your site elevation. So architecture is not just about the buildings, it's about building in some context. So if you respect or if you follow the same design vocabulary that is present in the site, so that can be understood from your site elevation. Or if you think that you need to your design should stand out from what is there in and around in the surrounding, so that can be clearly understood from your site elevation. or even the concept that you started with, that can be very well understood from the site elevation. So relationship between built form and surrounding. A successful site elevation demonstrates harmonious relationship between the proposed structure and the existing urban or natural fabric. So this is also like understood. Along with it, highlights how the building mass, height and setbacks contribute to the streetscape or the natural setting of that particular site. Then next is with respect to urban, rural or natural context. In urban context, site elevation shows how a building fits within the dense and structured environment. In rural or natural landscape, site elevation emphasizes the integration of built form with the nature. So whether it is in accordance to its surrounding or not, that can be very well judged through the site elevation and site section, because with the help of elevation you can understand the context very clearly, because it is in respect to the scale of the floor plan, and site elevation is generally with in the same scale as you show the site plan. So possibly there you can understand the context more clearly. Then responding to topography and terrain, site elevations illustrate how buildings respond to the sloping or uneven site that is there. They represent the ground levels, contour and gradients very clearly in the drawing. This ensures that the design adapts to terrain rather than ignoring the natural terrain in your site. So analyzing slopes and contours, so all these can be understood, that how you have utilized the slope and contours of your site. This can be understood from the site elevation. Then next is strategies for integrating the building with respect to the site. So if you have a sloping site like this, so your building elevation in totality can be visualized through your site elevation, and from a distance place how your entire site would look like from a very distance, from a very far away place. So that can be visualized through the site elevation. This helps minimize the earthwork if you have included the natural slope and contour that is present in your site. Then respecting natural features, that is identifying and integrating the existing trees, rock formations and water bodies into the design. So this enhances the biodiversity, provides natural shading and adds some character to the building. So if you have a building and then you showcase with the existing natural features, how does your building would look like in this context? So is it in accordance, is it overpowering the natural setting, or is it it is not overpowering natural setting, rather it is complementing the natural setting? So this entire information can be understood from the site elevation. Integration with vegetation and adjoining features. So vegetation is drawn to showcase the ecological balance and microclimate. Trees and shrubs give natural context and scale reference. So generally site elevation is also very important to give your client or to give a perspective to the examiner, that how have you integrated the natural setting in your design. It's okay that you have some ideas related to the structure, and but when you explain that okay, I have thought of integrating nature or integrating the site in my design, and all that can be said by words, but to represent that through the design or through graphics, site elevation is the best tool in this case. So harmonizing with existing landscape elements beyond topography, site elevation should also illustrate the integration of new planting scheme with existing vegetation. So if you have thought of some shrubs to be planted or some new vegetation to be introduced, so that also can be showcased in your site elevation. Then also respecting the adjacent build form and scale, the elevation must show how the new design relates to the height, massing and architectural rhythm. This involves careful consideration of roof line if you are designing a new building. So if it is in accordance to the roof line, or the floor line of the entire street. So this has a strong like representation that can be understood from this drawing. Scale, facade rhythm and alignment are maintained for harmony, especially critical in heritage zones and conservation areas, because as per the heritage building bylaws you have to follow certain character of that particular street. So that has to be represented, or with strong clarity you can say that okay, you have followed this only with the help of site elevation, because you will be showing the buildings that are there nearby and how have you respected or how have you followed that design guidelines that are there for that particular location. So this all can be understood from the site elevation. Also, capturing the skyline and volumetric hierarchy, the building's profile against the sky is crucial. So elevation should articulate its contribution to the urban skyline. The skyline is a silhouette created by roofline and building heights. Elevations capture how new designs add to and modify or disrupt the skyline. This is key in shaping urban identity and character to the space. Then representing the material transition, as we try to say that okay, we want to create something very iconic in that space. So this iconic, though you cannot show that that through just the elevation of the building, it has to be shown in some context by specific use of material and all that can be shown in elevation, but in terms of context that your building is creating some identity in the surrounding, and then it will attract lot of people because of the curiosity that will develop. So that can be understood with more clarity by the site elevation only. Then maintaining human and environment scale, include human figure, vehicle and street furniture, because these all represent some provide some proportion and scale to the structure. Then drawing techniques for site elevation includes if it is a manual manually drafted drawing, or if it is a manual sketching. So emphasize on hand-eye coordination, line weight and atmospheric perspective, ideal for conceptual stages, and conveying the artistic intent at a very initial stage. When you are just at the conceptual level, you want to showcase how have you integrated the site existing features. So this can be done through sketching. Then next is your CAD based drafting or your hand based drafting. It offers precision, scalability and ease of revision, essential for technical documentation and coordinated drawing. Then 3D modeling and visualization. So here it provides realistic representation, allows for complex lighting, shadow studies and integration with actual site photography, great for client presentations. Now let us take some examples and understand how site elevation is is very important in some cases. So for example, we select the building Shard that is there in London. So you know that the building has created an identity on its own, so that can be understood from the site elevation. So you can showcase all the buildings that are there nearby with the design element that it has and the height of the structure. So it has created an identity of its own in a very short span of time. So this can be understood from the site elevation. Next is your falling water at Pennsylvania. So this is Frank Lloyd Wright's masterpiece. So here he has integrated the building with the nature. So this in its own, if you just show the falling water structure, you cannot understand much about how the nature is being integrated in the design. So for that, if you showcase the surroundings and then showcase all the vegetation that is there, so probably then you can understand and visualize that how the existing natural features are being integrated in the design. So this is how site elevations are very essential in many design projects. Then the overall lessons that we have learned from several examples is that the site elevation should embrace the site's narrative. So the site history, ecology and existing conditions should inform the design. So that same can be reflected through the site elevation. So you can strongly say that you have followed the site existing condition and you have integrated that into your design. So prioritize vertical relationship. Consider carefully how the building meets the ground, rises and culminates terminates. These vertical transitions play a crucial role in achieving the contextual harmony. So details should be focused from materials, joints to shadow lines. All these has to be highlighted in your site elevation, along with the visual the view of the structure from different angles. So you should represent site elevation from at least two different directions. It should always be from the main road, from the passing main road, that you should show how the entire site will be viewed from any person who will be passing through the main road that is just in front of the structure. So the entire composition of spaces and all these different blocks can be understood very clearly. Then presentation of site elevation on final sheet, you can showcase the existing buildings, the existing natural terrain can be showcased through all these lines, and then showcasing the building that you have highlighted with its with the elevation features that are present. They mention the levels of the several other buildings, showcase the natural features like trees, and add some human figures to give the proportion of the structure with respect to the natural setting. Then the key expectations out of site elevation is that it should provide a clear scaled view of the building facade. It should showcase the relationship of the building with the adjacent structures, depict the site level, slope and contours. It should indicate different materials with textures, shading and hatch patterns. It should demonstrate human scale, building scale, and the environmental scale. It should use you can use manual sketches at a very preliminary stage, then you finalize it by drafting, and then at later stage you can use this site elevation to for the 3D view or 3D modeling of the entire structure. Then to conclude this presentation, the successful site elevation should showcase the contextual fit with built and natural surroundings. It should represent the materials very clearly and effectively, maintain the balance between human, building and the environmental scale. So the key takeaway would be that site elevation should clarify how a building relates to its site and surroundings. So when the question is being asked to you that okay, you have designed a building, but can you tell me how it is responding to its surrounding, so you should always have site elevations to justify your answer. So you should tell that with the help of material or by designing the building in context to the site, you have you have justified that you have followed the existing site condition and merged the building with the existing site features. So also the site elevation should represent material scale and proportions with accuracy. Elevation should integrate topography, vegetation and the adjoining features. They should also serve as essential tools for design communication and approval. In some cases, elevations bridge the concept and context. At very initial stage, you might have said very specific aspect about how your building is integrated with nature or with the surroundings of your site. So these all aspects you can again relate that in your site elevation and your site sections that I'll explain at the next presentation. So these are some activities that are suggested that you can complete after this lecture is over, and then if there is any doubt you can ask me. And these are some resources that are being that are given to you. You can explore further and understand more about the details. Then your next presentation will focus on site section. So why site section is necessary, as in case of site elevation we have been able to understand few details, but further understanding of site section and the details about how you have integrated the nature or the existing topography with your building, so that can be understood with the site section. So role of site section will be explained to you. Integrating landscape and the build form is clearly explained only through your site section. Representing site grading and some drawing conventions related to site section will be explained in the next presentation. So with this I'd like to conclude my presentation, and I hope that the explanation regarding the importance of site elevation and why is it necessary to be included in your thesis is very clear to you, and you will include this in your final submission, and all the questions related I just suggested can be answered very well if you include site elevation in your submissions for the thesis and for the architectural design studios. So with this I'd like to conclude, and I hope this presentation was very useful to you, and I expect to meet you in the next presentation. Thank you.